Yeah, welcome guys to Living Abroad. This is another episode. I have my brother here, Gavin. Thanks for watching the previous episodes, guys, and thanks for your comments. I will allow you to introduce yourself formally, who you are, where you're based, and how long you've been in the UK for.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, right? It's a pleasure to be sharing your platform, so I'm grateful. Yeah, my name is Gavin Brady. I've been living originally from Jamaica, right? I like to say, I'd like to say originally, but we know how history is, right? So I'm from Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica. I don't think original is the correct term, but I'm from Jamaica. But we know the history, and that's that, right? So I moved from Jamaica, live in Scotland. I would say for the best part of 16 years now. So that's how long since I've left Jamaica and residing directly. So when most people ask, they think you do a transition from Jamaica to London and from London to Scotland. But I'm one of the unique story. I leave Jamaica and I get off the plane in directly in Glasgow, Scotland. So I've been here for about 16 years now.
Wow. So your kids were born here?
Yeah, my kids, three of my kids they are born in Scotland. So by default, I think they take the nationality from their mom. So they are Scottish. Scottish or British. That's up to them to figure that out.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because I remember how we got into contact through Ravi. And I mean, I know Ravi for a couple of months now. We worked together at the BBC documentary. And when I was sharing with him what my daughter has been experiencing at schools, and he was like, oh my God, get in contact with this guy. I think his children have been experiencing the same thing, So that's how we got into contact. And I just want to talk to you about that because my racism experience at schools, with my children, has been I would say every other month, I have to go to the school and report an incident. Every other month, I have to go to school and report an incident. To a point where I felt like maybe I'm the problem, because when you go to the school and you can see expression, from the parents, from the teachers, it's like, oh, not you again.
Yeah. I mean, but it's important. It's important you don't take that mindset.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because my youngest, I've had three kids that have been through the school system, and my youngest, unfortunately, she seems to be the one that's dealing with it the worst, and it's really a simple fact that she refused to accept it, right? The other bigger two, they didn't speak about it much, which seemed as if their experience was different. But because my young one, she appreciate and love her blackness, so she'll go to school with her hair even me sometimes is easy sister, because being in the present of an Afro, there's something about it, So,
yeah. So I love it. I love that.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance with her because she just embraces her trueness, right? And we grew up with African or Jamaican parents, which the lineage is the same. So they're always telling you, comb your hair, and you would never go through the door without feeling like your hair, something isn't wrong with your hair. No, she's going to school with her Afro is out here, right? And I think sometimes, so she will come up against a pushback, but she is not accepting it. And she's literally standing up for herself. So we have been up to the school and you know what I mean? It's one thing to have a naive approach to think that racism isn't an issue in the UK. I think sometimes you might hear a comedian joke about the difference in the racism experience between the UK and America. Is that UK is so pragmatic? They are such a, what you call it, a stiff upper lip, where as if it's not there or they're above it, but underneath the surface. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's what you find it. So when you go to the school, you will always see the look of horror and embarrassment on the teacher's face. Does that make sense? But you could not let that deter you from pointing it out, right? And I've been up to the school and speak about my daughter experience, but I don't speak about it as if I'm trying to blame the school. It's a failure on the education system. Does that make sense? Because you got people in the classroom who's delivering sensitive topics that they are not trained properly to deal with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's very like interesting when you say your daughter just like embraces it. She goes to school with her afro. Where do you think that stems from? Were you like teaching her from a young age, like about self-love and about Jamaica, about being, because she was born here.
As a Black person, if you're living in the UK and you don't appreciate yourself, then you will struggle to find a place in this society. Does that make sense? And I mean, it's a different conversation for a different topic, but I've seen a lot of people from the Africa, Jamaica, wherever, just bleaching. But that's them. Do you understand? You can see they are literally, and you don't know if they are trying to fit in. You don't know what's causing it, if it's a trend, or but that's there. Does that make sense? So for me, I always encourage my kids them to just be yourself, because once you spend your life searching for yourself, then that's a wasted life. Does that make sense? The quicker you come to terms with saying I'm Black and this is me and I'm proud of my skin tone, I'm proud of the body that I have to live in, then the rest you can use the rest of your time doing more things that's going to enrich your life. So I've always, because I don't act as if I'm not Jamaicans around them. I know Jamaican don't have like a second language, for example, like you know, you move from Africa, you bring your language, your different language. We Jamaica, we have what we call a native tongue, like the patois. Does that make sense? So even imprinting that around them, cooking the food, telling them about Jamaica, just everything, just to let them know that this is who you are. Does that make sense? So so I'm lucky enough for my kids, they're not really going through searching with identity crisis, because being in an environment in the school system where they are constantly feel like they are being singled out or reminded, then it's not new to them, because listen, they already know that this is who I am. So it's up on you now to deal with it. If you have a problem with it, then talk. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's so sad, even through languages, like you said, some people like are African and they have like a native language, but coming through like living in the UK, for instance, and they wouldn't teach their kids like their native language, which is so sad, you know?
Why would you not do that? Why would you not?
Why would you do that?
Why would you not like? Why would you not pass on a part of you to your kids? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing that, if you don't do that, and if your kids refuse that, then it's going to be a tough world for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And so again, my daughter, like, even me, right? Because I was raised to think like, fix your hair. Like your hair is bad. That's the part of every Black person. Your hair, whether you're a boy or a girl, your hair, you're constantly being reminded that you have a bad hair. No, you know what I mean?
You cannot walk around with your afro. No.
Exactly. Yeah. So it takes me a bit of time to get used to, and I'm forever grateful for her to help me to understand, like, our hair is, and so she'll go. Doesn't matter where she'll go. If she feel like catch it up, she catch it up. She doesn't feel like catch it, and it's like hot here, like seriously. And she'll go to school sometime, and yeah, I think because it can be a in your face thing, you know what I mean? Like this is me. And yeah,
but is it not interesting that the minute you are like that, you are seen as aggressive? You know, like
you funny you should touch it, because yes, there's a part of the teacher when you go to the school, there's a part of them that's saying, oh, she can come across as this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And because even me the other day, right? And it's still in the court system, so I'm not going to speak much about it. Like, I phone a taxi and the taxi turn up, and yeah, the worst racist taxi driver from hell. You know what I mean? So I was put through the justice system for basically shouting in the street. Does that make sense? Right. So, but like I said, I'm still waiting on that as you speak. So, and that's the reality of Britain. That is the reality. But there's a part of them would like, because I phone my local taxi, and I've always lived never had all my life in the UK, like, it's always, I done the industry I'm working, I will always put myself in danger protecting them, man. Does that make sense? And I phone a taxi, and the taxi turn up, and the short version of the story, the next thing I know, I was getting put through the justice system for basically shouting in the street. And it was just simple because I still haven't even hear back the outcome of that as yet. But I'm waiting to see what they are doing before I do. Does that make sense? Yes,
And
I
when you
was.
say like the UK, it's like it's underneath, they try to hide it. Whereas maybe in places like America, it's out there and people are talking about it. Have you heard about the report? I think it was last year when there was this report that they were writing to do like a research to see if the UK is racist. And the report came out to say no, they did some research and it shows that UK is not racist. There's no racism in the UK. And you just ask yourself, like, who did you actually ask when you were doing this report? Because I'm experiencing it every day. My children are experiencing every day.
And it's sad when you see what your kids go through in school, you realize. But I think what the UK is done is racism is equivalent to what they do to sectarianism in football. They have managed to push it out the mainstream. Does that make sense? But it's because if you follow the UK football, they're always about clamping down on sectarianism. It's about Catholic versus Protestants and the stuff like that. Now the racism is similar, right? It's not, maybe it doesn't look on the forefront because you don't got as much prominent people in the media coming out and say, we are experiencing it, right? But the everyday person who has to go to our work here and who have to integrate in the British society, does that make sense, right? Like in the workplace, how much of them is getting looked over for promotion? How much of them is getting a fair shake? Does that make sense? When you listen to what our kids is experiencing in school, then you have to ask yourself, yes, it is not disappear, because a lot of these kids, yeah, you can't blame the household holistically, but they are picking up different stuff on the different social media platform, right? But some of them are coming from environment that nurtures and fosters racism. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's not gone anywhere. But like I said, the UK is British is known around the world to be posh and upper. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
posh.
they have
Yeah.
a different way. While in the while in America, like, yeah, they don't care. It's like this is us, and the UK is still like, oh, we are not, we are above that. Right. But at the end of the day, like, just listen to the experience of your kids. That's because remember, in our school is a reflection of the community. Because a school is made up of people in that community. Does that make sense? So when my kid is coming home to me and said to me like, oh, somebody said, oh, I can give away a black pass. I can give somebody a pass to call, to use the N-word to call, refer to our next black. You understand what I'm saying? Right? So these are things and they are using all the old time sayings and all the racist tropes that they wouldn't have known unless family members is using those racist language around them. Does that make sense?
It's so like interesting because like how people say, oh, there's no child who's born racist. People are children, they learned it. But I mean, I'm talking about like an 8-year-old boy that said, like, to my son, just like came out to my son in the class and said, oh, your face is so brown, it looks like I have put on it.
Yeah. And
you're like, at 8 years old.
Yeah, and again, that's what I said. So that's a sad reflection of the community and the home they're coming from, right? But then again, you have to ask yourself, all right, if he's saying that to your kid, what is the repercussion? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And then if you have to go to the school, then you feel like you at some point you have that survival guilt. Does that make sense? You actually felt like I'm being a burden. Does that make sense? While your kids shouldn't be experiencing that.
I mean, now it's very like interesting when you're talking about like the punishment. Now, how would you punish like an 8-year-old child who says something like that? How would they? Because for me, I feel like the school, most of the time, they get a slap in the wrist. Because even with the principal or the teachers, they've never experienced what my child has experienced or what we have experienced. And most of the time, it's kind of like they think a timeout is okay. For me, that is my clash with the schools.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's the reality of racism. What do they do or what do we do? Does that make sense? He's 8. So what does punishment looks like for an 8-year-old? Does that make sense? And that's where the problem comes in, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You know what I mean? You know, that's where. So, and even thinking about it, you'll be hard pressed to find somebody say this should be the punishment for an 8-year-old, right? It's just a reflection of the environment that they are coming from, right? But we have to find a way. But I think the idea, the importance come back to your kid, and your child shouldn't be subjected to that, because that will have a long-term knock-on effect on your kid. Does that make sense? So
yeah, because it's kind of like, okay, so he said this. Well, there's nothing we can really do as a school except for giving him time out. But it's not taken as serious as maybe if a child would assault another child. Do you know what I mean? That is my problem with them. It just feels like the people that have put these punishments or these rules in place, they haven't felt it. So for them, it's just like, it's just words.
Yeah, not for them, no. But unfortunately, that's the reality of living as a minority in somewhat in this country. Does that make sense? You are talking to people like, it's like a famous artist got a song that his name is Chuck Fender. Is like, do you know what to feel to live in poverty, right? And in the song he went on to say a lot of these politicians is never hungry, so they can't relate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, how does that relate to this conversation? A lot of these teachers, they have never been, so they can't relate to it. Does that make sense? So 5 minutes into the conversation, they start getting bored. You can see it on their face. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when you're asking, is that all you're gonna do to him? And then they're like, what do you want us to do? Because they're not feeling it.
Yeah, then 5 minutes time they start to usher you out the door, because they don't understand. You know what I mean? They don't understand, because it's not their daily experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's not the experience. And again, I'll go back to the song. If you're never hungry, then you can't relate to it.
How are you really gonna deal with it?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So they have never been racially abused, or so they can't really relate to it. Does that make sense? That's why they get bored.
Even with the latest, like where I was speaking to Ravi about it, that's when he got me in contact with you. It's like the incident with my daughter, where this young boy said, oh, I'll give you a $5 as a bet and a passport if you do 1, 2, 3. And my daughter was like, why would you think I don't have a passport? And he's like, of course, you came here by boat. You don't have a passport, So now the principal thinks it's okay to just like exclude this boy for 1 day and they can kiss and make up. That's when I put my foot down and I'm like, no. But now the whole thing is like with the court, because I want to get him done for hate speech. I'm just like done with him. He's over 16, so he can stand trial.
Yeah, 15. He can and he should be held accountable for his actions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And unfortunately, it keeps going back. You know what I mean? And it's sad, and this is why you try to tell like our fellow people. Sometimes we have to build up our place, because that's the reality you have to live with sometimes. And yes, and that's it. It's a reality you have to live with sometimes, right? And too often, to be honest, I would like to think that more of these issues is going unreported.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
This is not even the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. Like,
no.
You know what I mean? And this is why when I was speaking to the school, I'm like, I'm not even speaking to you on the behalf of my kids alone, because I know for a fact that more kids is experienced. And that's the education system in the UK.
Yeah, for me, I would say there are no like systems in place that actually deal with it. There's no education. Like how they do it with like global warming. My kids will come here with some plans. Oh, we need to plant global warming and this and that. But there are no systems when it comes to racism.
Yeah, I just think they are just lazy and they think it doesn't exist. I think the education system, after what I've heard my kids have been through in school over the past couple of months, like, I just think the education system is either they don't care, or they're just lazy, or they just don't think it exists. But none of the above is good. None of the above is good.
No.
None of the above is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
None of the above is good because in 2023, you shouldn't worry about your kid going to school. I shouldn't need to worry about my kid going to school and what prejudice he or she's going to face. Does that make sense? And then when you check with the education system, there's nothing in place. They just doesn't care, right? And you go to the school, they will tell you the hands are tied. They can't do much, right?
Yeah. Or maybe it's up to us then as Black parents to actually inject some sort of education in schools.
Yeah, I mean, it's like for people like yourself and myself who's with like, because I speak up, you know what I mean? And yeah, like I said, it's not surprising, you know what I mean? Like for you and me as an adult, we see the looks on the face sometimes. We you know what I mean? But you would like to think your kid could be good. I didn't believe. Now, it's not I didn't believe. But like when I hear what my wee one experience she was going through in school, but no, she's dealing with it better because you know what I mean, our maroon blood is strong, you know. So you know, yeah, we're not going really full, you know, because last time I spoke to her, I'm like, once these people break you, once they use these kind of words and break you, you're broken for life. So you just have to yeah, because that's what racism people do. If they break your spirit, you're broken.
And it was just like so interesting with like the boat story that this boy said to my daughter. But this is what is happening in the news at the moment, like the politicians talking about, oh, we need to send the boats back. We need to send. So it starts even with if you're using that sort of language every day in parliament, because that's the discussion at the moment, which is for me, you know what I mean? If the politicians are saying that, so what should the normal person do or say?
And that's why I said, remember I said earlier on, a school is a reflection of what's happening in the community and society and a broader world, because yeah, it is a collection. Remember, kids is leaving your house, leaving my house, and they are taking everything, because it's not like when they're in the house, they are switched off and not listening. Does that make sense? So when you got somebody, parents over there that's just spewing it and racism, they're not bringing it right to school because they think it's acceptable. Does that make sense? And this is where the education system needs to be more robust. And yeah, it might say, what does punishment look like for a child? But if you need to sit home and look on your kids for a week because of your behavior, then you need to look at yourself. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
But because sometimes nothing much happen and nothing will change, and then they get bored and they don't understand why you want to speak to them in regards, because they don't understand it, because then it's not their experience, and we don't have people that looks like me and you in. Does that make sense? The last person I think like, and this is why it's important for when you take a seat, because when they give you the token seat, right? When they give you the token seat, it's important that you use it. Right? Or at least try. And you got this politician named Graham Campbell.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah.
He is the worst human being, right?
Really?
Yes, because he's got, see, this discussion that me and you is having, right? If you want to take up that token seat, I remember phoning Graham and said, Graham, my kid, come on. This is when the George Floyd thing was going off, and they were literally examining the books that they were teaching in school, right? Yeah. And my kid was saying that. Oh, what school is using? Rihanna, what's that book called that you use in school?
I think it's the last time we spoke, it was Mice and Men.
Mice and Men. Is it Mice and Men? Of Mice and Men. I'm like, God, you know that book? I said, let's have a con. He's like, in his way all. He's as fake as they come. I've spoken, and I actually sent him a message and said, you are the worst kind of person, because what? When you get that one token seat, use it.
But what do you think it's wrong with Africans? Like, if you have those seats, why do you think they can't stand up and actually change things? It's not just him.
Because it's always been, it's whether it's a hangover from slavery or it's just the way of black people. Once I get my foot in the door outside the court, I'm not going to rock the boat. It takes a special black person to go inside and say, I'm here to make change. Does that make sense? Right? It takes a special black person to go inside and say, I'm going to make change. Because it can be intimidating when you sit and you look and no one around you look like you. But if you're not brave enough to take on that fight, then just try it. Hopefully the right person. Does that make sense? Right? But
so what were you saying? So what were you saying to me? So you were trying to get him to look into this book because the book, my daughter, like they were reading it as well. So the book has nigger in it, and the teacher will actually read the word nigger, and you will see. Yeah, like why do they have to? I mean, there are so many like books out there. So why would you choose this one book?
And then that opens a next can of worm. It literally opens a can of worm. And then a barrage of racism start to come down on these kids.
Because the kids are laughing now. After they read the book, the kids will be laughing at lunchtime. They are talking about this. It's another topic of discussion. Your daughter will be sitting there embarrassed. Why would a teacher choose?
You want to tell me in 2023 they can't find more they can't find a way to campaign for all kind of rights for all kind of people, right? And they can't look and say, look, these books in the education system is outdated. And when you speak to, he's a member of parliament, and you said, it's a time to have the conversation. I have kids in school. This is what he was like, well, look, there's not much I can do.
Why?
How will you go? You know what I mean? He's the worst kind of human. And I actually tell him a message. You are the worst kind of human being because you what? You take up that one token seat and you don't do anything with it.
So what is he actually? What is his job?
I think he's the last time I heard he was a member of parliament or councillor. But he's within that. Does that make sense? And this is why that's what I said to my message. I said, you're the worst kind of person because guess what? You take up the token seat and you do nothing with it. Anywhere there is a camera, he's there to have his picture taken. That is all.
I've heard of him. I've never really spoken to him, but I've heard of him.
Yeah. And this is why you a person like you myself will always be left out in the court. Because if they said, all right, yeah, one at the end of the day, it's like a token seat, but at least use it to shine some light.
But for me, this is the trend I see when it comes to, I mean, I'm not talking about just him. Even like when you look at like African leaders, you know what I mean? You look at like countries, they will say, oh, they've got their independence. Look at my country, it's been 35 years. We've got independence, but we have changed nothing.
No, we won't change nothing because we don't bring through fresh blood. It's a different conversation if you're different side. You know what I mean? Like, and because if you look at all, I've said this all before, and as a black person, you'll be hard pressed to find a country that's run by a black leader that you'd be like, I would live there, and my basic human rights and my quality of life would have been guaranteed. Does that make sense?
What's wrong with that?
Something is fun. No, look, you tell me, right? You look in this world, look in this world, and you tell me, and you'll be hard pressed, right? You'll be hard pressed to find a country that you say it is majority black, it's run by a black leader. I would love to live there. And that's there like the problem. So it's not even,
but we just can't govern. Like, I mean, the truth needs to be told. Otherwise, we're just gonna be like running around in circles. It's either maybe we're just unable, we are not capable of leadership, of running anything. And I think we need to.
It's not that. I said this to my brothers all the way because I do Facebook Live, right? And people say black people doesn't unite. And to me, that's the biggest misleading statement an ex-black person can make. Because if black people didn't unite, right, then we would still be enslaved. It was our ability to unite and bring each other together. Does that make sense? That was what really get us off the plantations, etc., right? I've seen it before, right? Doesn't matter we're going in Europe. If you see more, if there's more than 4 black or 3 or so, let's say 2 black men stand and talking. Not without long, somebody's coming over to find out what are you talking about, right? We are known to unite, right? But where the problem come in now is the greed and the selfishness, right? And the lack of vision. Does that make sense? Right? There's countless things I've said in my life. And I mean, like, even the pandemic has showed us as Black people that we are, and like, yeah, it's okay to say I should have educated myself so I could make a contribution. But when you look in the world during the pandemic, every race was making a vaccination for their people. And Black people was like, hey, can I have some? Like, and that was a fear. That was Black people's biggest fear, confronting the mortality. Entire race was forced to confront the mortality. Because tell you what, while the Chinese are the European making them vaccine for the people that looks like them, we are saying as Black people, I don't know, you know. You understand what I'm saying? Am I lying? Am I lying?
We're just gonna get leftovers. Just give us whatever you don't need. We'll take it.
And then we're literally forced to say, why? If I'm dead, because I don't think there was a Scottish person or a white person or a Chinese or Indian would have seen that the vaccine would have been made by an Indian and think, oh, they are just going to kill me off. No. You understand what I'm saying? But every Black man was thinking, well, this could be hit for me because we didn't see people at the forefront that looks like me and you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, that's what it is. Anyway, that's a different topic, be a different day, you know what I mean? But how do we change it? How do we really change it? Right?
But I mean, you've been here like longer than I am. Like, because I moved here in 2010 and I went back home and I just recently came back in 2019. So I'm new here, but what is your like experience when it comes to Black communities like around here, especially in Scotland?
I would not say I can't really, because I literally like just work home. You understand what I'm saying, right? I don't feel like I'm a part of an XY community. Does that make sense? Because I'm not, hopefully in the future, I might be able to foster more relationship, but like, I'm literally like a one man and with the family that I've made because luckily, like, we're saying that my wife, she's Scottish, right? And I'm a good person, very good art person. Good people is good people when it comes to that, right? So I'm very weary of where I go. I don't try to, this is how I really find it. Like, I'm very scared. I'm not blinded by the fact that the outside world still have people have certain views, right? So I'm very I'm mindful of where I go and what I do. Does that make sense? I'm not aware of African because I still don't see the unity amongst when they do meet. Because I've met Africans already that tell me that Jamaicans don't like Africans and African doesn't like Jamaicans. They're like, what are you talking about? Like,
I was gonna ask you about that as well. I wanted to ask you about you because that's what I've heard being an African. Like Jamaicans and Americans, they don't want anything to associate with Africa. That's what I've heard. So what is your relationship with Africa?
The ignorant, I mean, like, no, I would never see an African, like, why would I see an African and not welcome and feel a sense of community? To be honest, when I meet African people, right, this is how I react when I meet African people, right? And yeah, when I do meet African first, when I meet African people, I'm always, where in Africa are you from? Right? And my second reaction is to commend them, to say that, right, at least you know that you are from there. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah, and then now we'll try to talk and say, is it really what? So, like, this is it's like a 3-4 stage. Where you from in Africa? They'll say, for example, whatever. And I said, well, yeah, at least you know where you're from. I'm from Jamaica. Well, they said I'm from Jamaica, but we know how history goes. Then I will say to them, is it really? Because 9 out of 10 times you see any African country, you see the images that they portray. It is not good. It's violence. It's this. So I'll ask them. They'll say, no, it's nice. A bit like Jamaica. They'll show the worst of Jamaica. You understand me? It's only Europe and America they don't show the worst side because it's all about branding and marketing, as we know. You know what I mean? And I will try to have a conversation. But sometimes you do meet some Africans that they don't want to talk to a next Black person like, really, bro? Really? Really, like,
No, because
seriously.
I was gonna like ask if it comes from slavery, like how like maybe Africa was portrayed in a certain way. That's why maybe you guys don't want to associate with it. It's like that. Is it true? Is
No,
it really false though that like Americans and Jamaicans don't want that Africanism? They don't want to
no.
be
I think,
associated with that.
I think 9 out of 10 times a Jamaican would welcome an African. I think my experience, I've interacted with Africans before and I've left thinking like, you know, the energy, you understand what I'm saying? You know, and I'm thinking like, seriously, like, we are minority in this place, bro. We like, we look the same, like, seriously, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. So, but in Jamaica, there was no ill feeling towards any Africans in Jamaica. Like Jamaica, I'll tell you something. Jamaica, we deal with people on an individual basis, right? We don't really get up and eat because we don't really have the time to eat. And that's why a lot of Jamaicans, like, we still, when people go from other races go Jamaica, they will get the best and they'll be welcome until you prove otherwise. You know what I mean? Because I used to work in the hotel, so sometimes you may got a tourist may come to Jamaica, and yeah, they might make it slip or the mask might come off, and then they have the worst, they have the holiday from hell. You understand me? And that's only that one tourist and everybody else around them. You know, it's like Jamaican, we can code switch like that. I can deal with you on your basis and then just switch and go deal with people on a warm, loving basis. Does that make sense? So I don't think like, so it wouldn't be a Jamaican seeing an African, because Jamaican, there's no Jamaican is getting up. I think a lot of Black American, like, even Black American, they look down on islands and they look down on Africa as this, they're above it. Does that make sense? But that's
so where do you think this stereotype comes from though? That Jamaicans don't want to be African?
No, as I said, so I was saying, no, there's no Jamaican I'm yet, because we're Jamaican, we are very, very much into our Africa. We are very much into our Africa. Like, if you listen to reggae music, 90% you'll be hard pressed to find a reggae song that doesn't sing about Africa, Africanism, and want to see the better Africa. There's every reggae song you listen is all about singing about, come on, African leaders, give the young people a chance and build up Africa. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, but on the flip side now, sometimes when you interact with Africans, you know,
so they'll be like standoffish.
Very much so. So now I've interacted. Don't get me wrong. I've interacted with a few African that it was good energy and a mutual understanding.
Like myself.
But, yeah, like yourself. You know what I mean? And we need to talk at the end of the day, right? Your experience is my experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The same person that doesn't like you is not gonna like me. Right? And that's just how it goes in this country. So your experience is my experience. Right? So any African that can come here and think like, all right, yeah, they can think otherwise. They are misleading themselves.
Yeah. Right? And another stereotype is like the weed. Is it like legal, like to smoke there?
But in Jamaica?
Yeah.
You know, so it's a great area because they were really mistreating the Jamaican public, the police forces, for the use of marijuana. I think the last time they beat this guy in this prison cell near Mario Dean, lost his life. So the government, and that was over a spliff. So the story is that they take him into custody, and basically the mother picked up a dead body, and they take him into custody for just a wee spliff, as we call it, a wee spliff tail. So it's just like, a spliff tail is basically the Whistler's sheet. Apparently, I think that was the story, but I know his name was Mario D. Now, I'm one of them person like, I don't really forget, you know what I mean? So they basically set up on him in the cellar. The police set other prisoners. I think some police lose their job for it, and the case published, you can read up on it, right? So I think the law is relaxed around it now. The law is you're allowed to have a certain amount on you for personal use.
Like here?
Right? So
like over here.
Oh,
in Scotland, apparently you allowed to smoke in your house.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, so but the laws. But even in Jamaica now, they have more control. Where after persecution for the small men all the years now, the big corporations are coming in and licensing and setting up, because you got a few distilleries opening around Jamaica. I think one of them is called Epic or something like that. So the government is making money off it now after ill-treating a lot of Jamaicans over the years. But it's just one of them, again, it just comes back to not understanding or not wanting to understand it and don't want to have a conversation. And these are the things that doesn't really move the country forward, because you look around the other parts of the world, they are legalizing marijuana holistically and profiting from marijuana, while the Jamaican government is insisting that we will tolerate that bit, but we won't really make it legal so people can really benefit from the financial
it always amazes me how tobacco, which is so dangerous, like will be legal, and then like the whole thing about like marijuana is just like crazy. But we're moving on. Like, can we just talk about your business? Like, I see what
my brand, well, I'm bringing Topform, you know, because Topform is so the ethos behind the brand is about making the sacrifice and paying the price, right? Because I've grown to understand that everything in life requires a level of sacrifice, right? So we have to willing to, I guess, even come back to you and our kids, right? We want to have productive, and you have to sacrifice your time going up to the school and speaking to and do whatever you need to do to just to make sure that, because whatever you do towards your happiness, it requires some sacrifice. Does that make sense? If that requires you have to be up the office 10 times a day, then that's a sacrifice, right? So the idea behind the brand is about making the sacrifice and paying the price. We call it Topform, right? We also, and then it's Topform will to power, right? Now every person is born with that inner drive, that inner will, right? But what makes a difference in your life and my life is if we're willing to use our will and to achieve something. Right now, I've been down that road and I'm still down that road, because when I finish here, I do personal training. So I finish here tonight. I'm going to my security job. And when I leave my security job, 6 o'clock in the morning, my first client at 8 o'clock. So the short version of the story, when I start work 8 o'clock tonight, I don't finish work till 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
Oh my
right?
God.
And that is the reality for the past 6 months, right? So I'm just building up my brand. Does that make sense? Because we want to have the resources, because we are at disadvantage, because we don't have the resources and we don't willing to just be patient and just to build something. Does that make sense? Black people, we need to be more builders. Does that make sense? We need to
come back from work. Come back from work and think of a business idea. Don't just sleep.
Could you repeat that for me?
No, I'm saying you need to come back from work and think of an idea of a business to keep going.
Yes, man. So but like, so when you say come back from work and think about a business idea, definitely. I know, I understand what you're saying. Definitely, because of course, because we have to. We literally, and without even straying from the topic, I know Kanye West says some things that I didn't agree much with, but I truly, up to a point, admire him, right? Because here's a guy that put a Fortune 500 company in where they're looking at they were looking at their investors and said we can't pay you any dividends this year because does that make sense, right? And they can't take that away from him.
No,
right?
Yeah.
But when he started out, everyone was laughing at him, and he invested his time, his uses, God-given talent, and that's where he is at today, right? So again, like, we have to get back. We just, as I said to my brothers all the while, they're like, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's not how do you not do it? How can't you not look and say, if somebody else can do this, why not me? And that's what I live by every day. Why not me? So I don't worry about if I need to work 30 hours, I will do it. You know what I mean?
I know.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a clothing company. You said, like, at the moment you're doing like hoodies and
hoodies, t-shirts. So you can find me at shameless plug. You can find me at www.topformwear.com, right? Or I'm on the Instagram at topform_wear. Right? Okay. You'll find, so I do hoodies, I do t-shirts, I do, like I said, it's a philosophy brand. It's a literal brand that saying, use your will to power, because that's the only thing that's going to make the difference in your life. Not the politicians, because the politicians, if you notice again, bring it right back to where we started. They are saying and doing what they have to do for the betterment of themselves and their people. Does that make sense, right? So if they need to demonize people coming off a boat looking a better life,
they'll do that
They
to
will
achieve
do that
whatever.
to achieve whatever. And the idea, right? They are using their will to power. They are using the will within them because you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yes. Yeah, and so we don't sit down. We don't sit down nowadays, to be honest, and blame the seed and the soil, and we just know, say, all right, listen to me. We have to understand and what we are here for. We are living in a time where we pretty much have everything at our fingertip. It's no easier than when you didn't have it, but try. Does that make sense? Try. And that's how we say try, and when you can, you support each other. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Like, thank you so much. I know how busy you are. Yeah, it's been great. I'm not gonna take any more of your time.
No, I appreciate that, like, I hope we can have a conversation again, you know what I mean? Because
I mean, there won't be enough time. Like, there's so much I want to unpack with you, and I think we should do this again, part 2.
Yes, definitely. And I will, before I go, I want to say the only thing that's going to save us, like, because as Black people, we know the latest shoes, we know the latest artists, but the one thing I've come to the realization, this term called personal development, right? And that's what I would encourage because every Black person, or every person who wants some personal development. Does that make sense? Once you understand that, you'll understand yourself first, and you'll understand everything. And as being as a minority living in here, you have to know yourself and stand firm, right? It's not gonna be easy.
Definitely. And also knowing what's going on. Like there are some Black people that says, I don't want to be talking about politics. Like sometimes politics is just depressing. It's like you have to know your life is politics. You're breathing politics. You're walking, you're driving on the road, it's politics. It doesn't help to just bury your head in the sand.
No, it doesn't. But even as I, again, go back to the beginning of the conversation, what was said to your daughter about coming off the boat, that was coming from a politician.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I said to you, it's just like, it's so ironic that this is what people are saying on the news, and this boy comes to school, which is true. That's what you said. Like, it's just like it's a reflection of the community. That's what I was saying to you. You're right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Oh, thank you so much.
Politics is important. Politics is important. Religion is important. Peace and everything is important in life. It's all about having the balance. All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Again, all right, Black people, I always have this mentality that Black people, we are very welcoming, and before you know it, we get put out. So sometimes you need a balance in life. You need the good people and the bad people. And Black people take that approach, we'll be all right in our own country. Because if you go to our own country, it's different races enjoying our country, and we getting pushed out and squeezed out.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Gavin. Thank you.
Pleasure.